To generate cavity maps, people use lots of different processes. The most common is to bake one out of Zbrush. The issues that I have with this is it's slow and I like to be able to automate the process. So I've built this template in Substance Designer where it will automate the process for you. All it requires is the displacement map, and this script will generate lots of different masks for you to use in your texturing to drive lots of different surface qualities. So I have a brand new substance here, and all I need to do is just drag our model. In this case, my model has lots of different UDIMs, but this will work if your model doesn't have UDIMs. I want to click yes because it's a UDIM mesh, and it will generate a new node graph for us. And if I just drag the model into the viewport, and if I right click on the new node graph it's created, you can see up here, it has all of the different UDIMs. Next, if I just drag my displacement map in my case, it has a midpoint of 0. And if I just plug it into the diff color and get a levels and just grade it just so I can visually see what's going on. And even though our node graph is UDIMs now, the displacement map isn't updating to the right UDIMs. So what we need to do is tell Substance Designer that this displacement map has a UDIM sequence. And it's simply $, open brackets, UDIM, close bracket. And now, when we change the node graph, it will change the displacement map to the different UDIMs. So now if I drag the cavity map gizmo in, and I switch between the different UDIMs, you can see it updating. If I press R, G, and B, you'll see that it's multicolored, and I've packed red, green, and blue information, all these different masks, into one RGB channel, which we can export. So essentially, we've got 3 masks with 1 export. And the controls are pretty simple. If I press R to isolate the red channel, we have the overall cavity map here. And there's one slider to adjust the radius, to isolate the different frequencies. The lower the number, the more finer details you have. And then you have the contrast here to ensure that we've got a nice sharp map. Next is just a blurred version of the cavity map. I often find that I want a slightly blurred version of my cavity map to have a nice fall off to some of the masks that I can create. And then in the blue channel of this mask, I have the ability to isolate the edges of these islands. I want to be able to isolate the edges of the scales, and there's controls to be able to add breakup to the edges as well. So you can control the amount of breakup there is, how high frequency it is. So it's really difficult to get this kind of stuff out of Zbrush, or even baking a high poly model in Substance to try and generate this kind of map. It's always going to be so much crisper to be able to do it like this, and this is my go-to. The next lot of maps are a normalized displacement map into a range where we can generate further masks from if we want to. So I've just put it in there. The next map is what I would call valleys. So the actual valleys of the mesh. So if you want to be able to drive different colors or even drive dirt in where the valleys are, you have control for this. And again, it's just one slider. And then in the green channel, the opposite of that, the peaks, So if you want to be able to isolate maybe more worn edges, or drive different surface qualities, or just mask out to drive different textures, you can. So these are packed in red, green, and blue channels. So to be able to export out, we just need to create, like normal, an output node, and I'm just naming it. And then in your texturing package, all you need to do is shuffle out the red, green, and blue channels. But in the case where you don't want to have to shuffle these out and you just want one or two specific masks out of this, all you need to do is just get a channel shuffle and shuffle out the red, green, or blue information, and you can then export those out separately if you want to. In my case, I don't want to do this. I want to use all the different masks to add as much variation as I can in my textures. So I'm just going to export out. And again, anytime the model updates, all you need to do is just run it through this script, and it will speed up how you texture drastically. Every time there's a model update, it's not a burden on you. To export, we need to make sure that we're viewing and double clicking on our UDIM node graph. This will tell Substance that we need to export it as a UDIM sequence. So right click and export outputs. I want to deselect everything that I don't want, and you'll see that all of the UDIMs are here. I'll change the resolution to 4K, define my output path, and then export.